Greetings, heathens and heretics, and welcome to a special one-off episode of In the Abyss. I have my house to myself for for a change, so we're trying something different. I've got with me Matthew, or do you prefer Matt? Are you Matt or Matthew?
I prefer Matt, yeah.
You're Matt. So I got with me Matt Davidson from Funeral Fest. So I'm not going to tell you anything about it because that's Matt's job. But Matt, thanks for joining me Saturday afternoon. And how are you doing? Hope you well.
I am great, thanks. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. Like I said, house to myself. I've got beer. I've got records. I got a pizza. I couldn't be happier. So
And you invited me over. That's lovely.
exactly. You're in. I'm in great company. So got you on to talk about Funeral Fest, which as we're recording it's in 2 weeks actually. It's a fortnight.
It is, yeah. It's 2 weeks today. We'd just be starting now.
Yeah, so it's getting close. So for those who don't know about Funeral Fest, just give us an idea of what it is, where it is, what you do, and all that kind of thing.
It's kind of extreme metal mixed with punk. There's a bit of every kind of subgenre. We're based up in the northwest, the south of the Lake District, Cumbria, a town called Barrow and Furness. More well known for its stabbings, but it's most certainly it's most certainly a good kind of hub for all this. We've got a great venue and that, and we just want to bring something to our area. So it all started about 10 years ago with local bands, and because I've been playing in bands for about 20 years myself.
Yeah,
So what I just like to do was kind of all the networking that we do on tour, or we meet new bands. We'd like to kind of introduce them to our scene and hopefully kind of build a greater sense of community, particularly in an area like Barrow and Furness where there's pretty much never been a metal scene as strong as it is today.
well, that's kind of what makes it interesting, really. It is your location. For anybody outside the UK, Cumbria is in the very northwest of England, close to the Scottish border, and it's not exactly what you would call sort of close to the rest of the world, is it? So
Absolutely.
doing what you're doing in a location like that is, we'll come into the challenges in a little bit, but what you're doing, I think, is really cool, and you're doing it in an area where you wouldn't necessarily associate with, like you said, with the metal scene.
Absolutely. It's part of the reason why we do it. Obviously, my hometown is quite close to Barrow and Furness, and we spent a lot of years just moaning about, oh, there's never any metal scene. I mean, I think there was like 10 metal bands, and most of them were kind of either at war with each other or completely differing styles. Say half of them were metalcore. There's one black metal band, there's one death metal band, and you know, and that's it. So we thought there's a dedicated scene. We need to like homogenize it and kind of. I think that one of the best ways of building bridges between them was to create something that appeal to everyone. Hence, with this, we've got new ever British heavy metal bands, we've got hardcore bands, we've got thrash, we've got death, we've got black metal, we've got glam rock, we've got a Motorhead tribute, we've got grindcore, we've got all sorts of things. And even if it's something that isn't particularly their forte, you find that a lot of people end up gravitating towards it from either the energy of it or the performance. For example, Basement Torture Killings, like a grindcore band from London. And when you hear grindcore, you think intense and all. The amount of people who aren't into metal came up to me and said they were the highlight of the day. And that's the energy that I want. I want people to come out of this feeling more creative, more inspired after it.
Yeah, 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 and I guess one of the hard things, I suppose, about putting on a festival in the first place is having a bit of a niche. And I suppose, if anything, the location is a big part of your niche, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. I mean, we also try to give the local bands something that like I've never had, because
Yeah,
being a member of that one death metal band, we could never play with the hardcore bands. We could never, get a gig locally, and we didn't want to turn away all the regulars on a Saturday night. So we ended up having to travel further afield, Manchester, Newcastle, London, to try and build up our name. We want
yeah,
bands from this area to have something on their CV to kind of start out with their EP kit with pictures on a big stage with lighting and proper PA for them to get the experience of working with these bands, or to have these big bands listen to them and think, wow, these are good, we'll perhaps give them an opportunity somewhere elsewhere.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense, and I can sympathise with that because originally I'm from Cornwall. I live in Essex now, so I've got obviously got all the wonderful scene that the southeast of England brings. But growing up in Cornwall, we had the same thing. We always moaned, "Oh, there's never many bands playing down here. Never any metal bands. There's no metal scene." But none of us, nobody did anything about it, and it does require someone to take a bit of a punt and try things out. And yes, you can take a risk potentially financially or whatever, but I don't know, these days I think if you're willing to take a risk and you're willing to put something behind it, then people will, if you book them, they will come, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say.
Mantra, yeah, I've heard that a lot this past year. Again, it's just, I think there's a little bit of, I mean, we're going to talk about the challenges later on. There's the issues with previous festivals. I'm not going to name any names, who have cancelled a week before, or they've not given refunds, or particularly post COVID when things were kind of a little bit on the ropes. There are a lot of people who are really panicky about giving something new a try. So we've been kind of publicly doing this on a grander scale, even though we've been doing Funeral Fest for about 10 years. We've been doing it on a grander scale as of 2022. So that went from one day we had Abaddon from Venom headline it. Then we went to 2 days. We had Raging Speedhorn and Discharge headlining. And then this year we've got Wormrot and Avenger and Kill to This headlining. So we're trying to kind of build that kind of trust with an audience.
Yeah.
Because again, it's a lot of money because bands nowadays are extremely expensive. Because
Yeah.
cost of living, they
Yeah.
also have to pay for everything as
Cost of
well.
traveling, everything, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, that all falls really on the punter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Inevitably. But I guess it, if you look at it, anybody in your area, if they want to go to a gig and it's not happening in their local area, they're going to have to travel to Newcastle, Manchester, Leeds. So, you're better off putting the money into your local area than taking it elsewhere. So hopefully eventually everybody wins.
completely agree with you. The hotels locally are going to
Yeah.
be full. The local pubs are going to be full. I think that it can only be a positive factor for Barrow. Plus, it's not really a tourist destination. It's an industrial town.
Mm.
Everyone tends to just go through it to get to the lakes or stay there if they want somewhere cheaper that's in driving distance. So I think that this kind of thing can only be great. I mean, we have been overshadowed a little bit last week with Dave's Day. I don't know if you saw
Right.
that on the news.
No.
The hairy biker, Dave Myers.
Oh, of course, yeah. They did a ride up through the country, didn't they?
That's right. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Barrow's kind of been on the map lately. So they're, I think that was fantastic for us. I purposely decided not to flyer it because I felt Funeral Fest might have been a bit inappropriate.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair point.
But respect to it. People are willing to come to Barrow. People are willing to travel for the right festival, and that
Yeah.
fills me with optimism about this growing potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to the lakes, and I got to admit, I adore it up there. It's a wonderful part of the world, and to be able, if you can do something like this like you said, I get the Barrow as a more of an industrial town, but that location as a whole, I think you've got something. Like I said, you've got your niche, you've got something a bit different to offer. So, it's what about for people getting there? Then you sort of you can give out all the information. This is your platform, really. How easy is it for people to get to by public transport and and that kind of thing? Because that's half the battle. If you take Bloodstock, Download, all these places, they're in the middle of nowhere, and they're a pain in the ass to get to if you don't drive. So what's it like for you?
Public transport, really easy. There's a direct train between Manchester Piccadilly straight to Barrow. Usually one train.
Perfect. Perfect.
2 hours. That's it. Dead easy. From there, the venue is maybe a 10-minute walk,
Ah,
2-minute taxi.
And are you so I can see it's an indoor event. But am I right? You're offering camping as well. Have you got somewhere close by that's doing that for you?
There's a big field just next to it because soccer with it being called the soccer bar, it is
Yeah.
kind of ball oriented, and they do have these. They've got a full stadium at the back, which hopefully we can gravitate towards in future. But they have some greenery, like some grass area, some turf on the outside of it. So we can only fit about like 30 plots, but it was
Right.
something that we wanted to offer to people
Yeah.
just in case they didn't want to travel back, or hotels if they were more expensive, etc. There's a travel lodge right next door as well, so it's really easy.
Have many people taken up the camping option?
We've got 2 tickets left.
Oh, there you go. So that makes it worth doing straight away, doesn't it?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
I
nice.
agree. And for 65 quid, it's an extra 20 quid on top of your ticket to get full camping experience. I know camping in Barrow, you might want to take your flak jacket, but it, it's going to be fine. Last year was a success. It was a bit of an experiment last year when we tried it, but it was a great success. People were really keen about it, and it was self-policing. There was no idiots, just
That's good.
people being respectful.
That's good. That's half the battle. If you can have a bit of that, then you're golden. Tell us a bit about the history then. How long it's been running? When you started it, the first bands you booked, all that kind of thing.
It kind of started about 10 years ago under a different name. It was Almost Fatal Fest because someone nearly died at one of our gigs.
Right. Okay.
It complicated story. He was basically trying to show someone up, and he accidentally slashed his arm open, and blood spurting, arterial spray, all this kind of stuff. And basically, we thought, oh, do you know what? People nearly die at our gigs, and it became a bit of a joke, and so hence came Almost Fatal Fest. And we started out kind of doing more small bands. I think Ninkazarg was one of the bands that headlined one of our early ones. We had bands like Colobus from Manchester. We tried to kind of give the same kind of vibe of different shit here and there. So we had Red Rum on one of the gigs, even though I'm not into pirate metal, but I know how many people locally loved it.
Yeah.
Um, like some of the bands like Ward 16 played one of their first gigs there. We decided to up our game a little bit with an all dayer. We had Desecration and Avenger headlining.
Yeah.
Then there was bands like Primitive Graven Image, Paste and Fetal Juice, Executioner. Just and it ended up being fantastic. We sold every ticket, and it was a tiny little venue, but it was just amazing. It just had that great vibe, loads of cool people there, and we tried to do it again the next year, but we were unfortunately the venue that we had dropped out on us. We had Discharge and Solstice headlining it,
Nice.
but unfortunately we had to cancel that a month out because the venue went under, and we couldn't find an alternative venue. So we took a few days off. Hence, we called Funeral Fest that because Almost Fatal Fest died.
Okay.
Um,
It makes sense. Yeah.
so Funeral Fest, as its name, its first one, we got Skeletal from France headlining the first actual Funeral Fest. Um, Followed by the next year we had Witch Mountain, who are a band from America. So I thought that was pretty cool. It was just perfect timing. We got offered and can't knock it. Then we had a big gap where we thought, well, I'm also in several bands, so we wanted to focus more on that. I play in a band called Repulsive Vision. And at the
Yeah.
time, we were starting to tour about a bit further, and all of our kind of cash that we would be spending, or time we would be spending on Funeral Fest, was hemorrhaged straight into the bands. Post COVID, when everyone was like desperate for gigs and everyone was kind of asking us, "When's the next Funeral Fest? When's the next Funeral Fest?" We opted to just do a 1 day event, mostly local bands, headlined as mentioned earlier by Abaddon from Venom, and that was a massive success. And we thought, let's go bold. Let's do 2 days. Let's get as many bands that we know, as many bands we're friends with. We had Devastator and Separation and Basement Torture Killings, and you know the lineup was absolutely phenomenal in my opinion. Like there just wasn't a bad band on the bill. The gig went absolutely fantastically. can't complain. So even though I said I'd take a break this year, I wanted to go on holiday. I wanted to kind of focus on writing the new album for Repulsive Vision. Uh, I got peer pressured into doing it again. We were desperate for a particular band. We really wanted. I'm not going to mention who it is because hopefully we might be able to sort it out for next year. A major death metal band from from Liverpool. We were desperately trying to pick them up, and we had a couple of meetings, a couple of discussions. It didn't work out. By which point we're talking, January, February, and we were struggling for our main headliner, and just all of a sudden the right band just turned up, and we were offered Worm Rot and Morn. Of course, I'm a massive grindcore fan, so
Yeah.
Worm Rot is a huge opportunity for me. Avenger, I'm a big fan of. I play bass for them at the moment. They're a new wave of British heavy metal, typical Iron Maiden
Yeah.
worship.
Know them. Yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah. Good band.
fantastic.
Cool.
We were going to have Cage Fight. We had Cage Fight books, but Tesseract ended up having a gig, so they had to cancel to do that instead.
Yeah.
And Kill to This just fell on our laps. So, although new metal's a bit of a new direction for us, we've never gone in that direction before. It seems to have worked well. And again, with the same with the lineup here, the getting to work with Kev Riddles because I'm a big Angel Witch fan.
Yeah. It's
Human
cool.
Nature, I see a shirt.
Yeah. Great
You know,
band.
Extinction of Mankind, one of my favorite bands, and Death Collector, Moon Reaper, Unburia. Just every band is great, and
Yeah.
I just
Moon Reaper, that EP they've just released. Yeah, it's fucking superb. They've really stepped up with that. Very, very. Put them at
so
Bloodstock last
powerful.
year, but they're so cool.
Honestly, it's so powerful. It's so sonically
Mm.
strong.
It is. It is. Her vocals are terrifying. It just the whole package just sounds amazing. They've really stepped up. I'm pleased for them. It's good to see.
Same, same. I don't know if you've heard of Harrowed as well.
I'm not familiar with them. There's a couple of bands on your lineup sort of I haven't got around to checking out yet, but the majority of us over. Yeah, I'm not familiar with them.
Unbelievably good. They're from Kent, so not necessarily too far from you.
Okay.
But metallic hardcore, but they're just really, really intense. Really good riffs, quite grindcore energy, but there's also the doom and fantastic,
Right. I'll
really
be checking it
powerful.
out.
And they're only a three piece as well. They're only, you know,
I fucking love a three piece that makes a racket. It's just something about it when a three piece comes and they just make so much noise that you think a five piece should be making it. It's something really satisfying about that.
totally agree.
You know, but yeah. So let's talk about Wormrot for a minute. Then that's a major name and quite a not obscure, but certainly an interesting booking when you consider where you are in the world. And it might be one of those bands that like, oh, is this going to catch on? Is this going to take people going to be into this? Because they are, pretty much they are extreme worm rot. So how did that come about?
Well, it all came about. We were desperately looking for a headliner, as mentioned. We were kind of late in the day. We kind of put all our eggs in one basket for this particular headliner we were looking for. And at that point, I was throwing out as many kind of requests to headliners. We asked several bands like Onslaught and Evile, and nothing would kind of like mesh. Like it's a bad weekend because it's the same weekend as Hellfest.
Yeah, yeah,
So in the end, I think we asked one guy who I think he booked a previous band for us in the past, and we asked him, and he said, "Oh, I've got this melodic death metal band, and we've got this," and I think it's not quite what we want. He said, "Oh, actually, I've also got Wormrot for you that day," and straight onto it, I thought that's the moment we've been waiting for, is the name that we really wanted because nothing meshed, and we really needed that one name. I agree
yeah,
with you how extreme that they are and how non-household. I think
yeah,
we were kind of looking for something that was extreme but household. Maybe like a Cradle of Filth that's not quite Cradle of Filth, if you get
yeah,
what I'm
yeah. Know what you mean?
saying. At that stage, we felt that that was the option that we needed to go for, and it's been so incredibly smooth behind the scenes with them. They are extremely respectful with a lot of the options and all this, and we've been back and forth. and it has humbled me to a lot because I think when you start doing this, you kind of anticipate a Brown M&M situation. But every single band we've worked with has been unbelievably respectful, and we want to go above and beyond because obviously we're not coming from far away,
Yeah,
Singapore and
yeah,
all that. But they are playing Hellfest the week before, so I'll
yeah.
say the week before, like 2 days before. So we just basically looked out really for the best opportunity in the dire situation we were in. But
I
I'm really excited. I've seen Wormrot several times, and they're always unbelievable live.
I guess like you can almost take the location out of it to a certain extent because to me, I live in, like I said, I live in Essex, and Cumbria is an awful long way from me. But when you're coming all the way from Singapore to Europe, I suppose it doesn't make that much difference, does it? It doesn't seem like such an issue.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying. Thing is, I know people who won't go, like, if it's raining on the day, they won't walk out of their door 10
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah, that's true.
So when you see bands that are coming from, well, Wormrot coming from Singapore, Morna coming from America,
Yeah,
that those are those are hell of a big difference from someone coming from Manchester or
yeah,
even London. I mean, London's a hell of a journey. I've toured all over, so those kind of journeys you start to appreciate more when it's much longer journeys.
yeah, yeah.
You
You do,
know,
and like you say, you want to be humble, don't you? And everybody just wants to be happy. You want everything to go smooth on the day, and that's what it's all about. That's where your reputation is built in it, and there's nothing better than word of mouth.
I agree.
You know,
I completely agree.
you can plaster stuff, you can advertise as much as you want, but if you've got bands and fans and people like that, and they just got nothing but good things to say, then you're onto a winner. I think is that goes a long way.
There are certain festivals that have provided unbelievable. I've said unbelievable too many times. Who have provided so um, strong and consistent lineups, yet no one buys tickets because it looks too good to be true.
Yeah,
And I can appreciate why people might be nervous to buy tickets in the sense of us being amateur, independent. It's our own money at stake, and
mm,
if tickets don't sell, you have to kind of draw a line in the sand where you think, well, this is the point where we have to make or break. Are we doing this or are we not doing this? Um, but this year, like last year, by this point, we probably sold about 50, 60 tickets.
right,
This year, we're at 130 tickets.
nice.
So I think that the word of mouth, the pictures from last year, the fact that we've kept on going, the fact that the lineup maintains its strength after last year. Because again, getting something like Raging Speed on and Discharge,
Mm,
it's not an easy one to replicate. And another reason why we picked Wormrot as well was as much as we love bands like Evil and again, I don't want to name too many names. They seem to be playing a lot of the same festivals
yeah,
that are the same size as us. No disrespect to them, they're a great band, and these festivals that they're playing are fantastic festivals. We wanted to stand out from the pack a little bit,
yeah,
do something that no one else is doing. Because again, because of the journey, because of us being in a weird place, we have to drag people from elsewhere. And if they're playing, let's say they're from Nottingham and Evil are playing in Birmingham, they're going to go to Birmingham. They're not going to come over to see us.
yeah.
And that's the difference. We felt like we needed to kind of be something that no one else is doing, so that people have to visit us.
Yeah, that's fair. And that's hard, in a time where there's a festival of some kind almost every weekend of the year now, all the way across Europe, or every weekend of the summer period. That's where it becomes really challenging, doesn't it? I mean, I'm sure it's very similar for much bigger festivals. Your Bloodstocks, your Arctangents, and things like that. They're all kind of fight. They're all fighting in the same pond. So to be able to offer something a little bit different, like a band like Wormrot, yeah, kudos to you, man. I think you've nailed it with that. You really have.
I appreciate that, thank you. But that's exactly it. If bands are kind of getting bids from Arctangent and Bloodstock, who, although not necessarily clashing entirely, they do have a clashing,
Yeah,
clientele.
Yeah.
That Damnation as well in there, and then when
Yeah.
you start to get new things like Fortress Fest in there, and you know, it's very difficult to maintain strength and consistency in your lineup, especially when you have other people who are also vying for it. This also means that booking agents can charge the world, and the more money gets added onto the bill, these bigger festivals in particular, they've got a full staff of, let's say, 30, 50, 100 people who have to
Yeah.
get paid.
Yeah.
Not like us, where we're just non-profit idiots who like to invest a lot of money into something that's not going to make us any back. But you know, I feel for them, but I also think that they've got a guaranteed uh, like fan base.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always used to call it download syndrome, where people would go to download, buy a ticket for download without thinking about who was playing. They just wanted to be at download,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Bloodstock's reached that point. Arctangen's been like got to that point, and Damnation has got to that point. We want to get to that point.
Yeah, and I suppose those festivals, it's exponential growth as well, isn't it? They've all kind of done it the right way. They're doing pretty much the same as what you're doing. It's started very, very small and just natural growth. When Bloodstock moved from indoor to outdoor, the first year I think it was about 1,800 people there. I went the third year, I think, the outdoor one, and there was probably 4,000 or 5,000 people there. And now they're getting close to sellouts. 18, 19,000 people. So but there's that financial risk, isn't there? Where, do we make that next step? Is it worth it? Is it going to be the end if it doesn't go right? It's a tough call, that one.
They've also started to take more of financial risk in the sense that, I mean, they're always going to evolve. They're different people than what they were. Let's
Mm.
say, was it 2003 their first one?
Yeah.
2005?
The first indoor one was 2001, wasn't it? I think Saxon. Yeah. Yeah.
Saxon headline, because they wanted to get like Children of Bodom and more of the kind of power metal bands that weren't
Yeah.
getting download and stuff. And I went for the first time in 2011, and it was already well established by that point,
Yeah.
but still growing and going for what I would say is a more modern set of headliners in particular. Obviously,
Yeah.
they've got Architects and Monomath as the headliners. I say modern, God, Monomath are what, 25 years old now.
But they appeal to that kind of modern demographic, don't they? You had Parkway Drive there a couple of years ago, and they've had to make that shift. Bloodstock would never be 18, 19,000 people if it was just power metal. It just wouldn't happen in the UK. So they had to make that shift.
I've also heard they struggled with a lot of the power metal bands because they're so big in Europe, they can
Yeah.
demand so much more money,
Yeah.
which Bloodstock it's not justifiable.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's like man of war syndrome or something, isn't it?
Mm.
It's the funny one, the power metal and traditional heavy metal thing that, we talked about this on the podcast several times, that this is the country that fucking spawned proper heavy metal in the first place. Yet for some reason, it's just not that popular here now.
Hmm.
Your bands like Enforcer and things like, there doesn't seem to be a market for them in the UK, and I don't get it. It frustrates the fuck out of me because there's so many great bands that don't play in the UK, and I don't know what it is. I can't quite put my finger on it.
I mean, a major example of that is Blind Guardian.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
they've just done a short tour that sold out every gig,
yeah,
yet they tend to only play here and there every so often. I mean, power metal's not my main vibe. I mean, I don't think Running Wild have ever played the UK, have they?
I don't. You know what? I wouldn't have thought so. I'd be surprised if they have.
Yeah, it's but bands like Candlemass will work.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. It's an odd one. It's an odd one. But for you guys then, as a festival, I mean, I'm sure you'd love to grow and grow and grow. Do you have a plan for, sort of 2-3 years ahead? Are you thinking, can we make the next step, or do we change venue? Do we look at going outdoors, all that kind of thing? Have you thought about that?
well, last year after the festival, I said, I'm never doing this again. Fuck this. Not under this stress anymore. Don't make me. So after peer pressure for this year, I've said, nope, this is my last one. I'm never doing another one. I'm never doing another one. and my team are already starting to plan for next year. So it's one of those things that maybe begrudgingly I'll be doing that, but I think considering the bands that were up for it but not free, I mean we had some I say unbelievable. We had some really shocking bands say, yeah, we'd love to. Obviously, we're busy that day, but what would you think about 2025? And of course, we're sat there thinking, Christ, should we just book it, get it done? There's other bands that are on like our lists. Like we need to get Hell Ripper there at some point.
Yeah, but yeah, that works straight away. I mean, the trajectory for Hell Ripper in the last 12 to 18 months has been incredible.
I remember the day I met the lead singer of Hell Ripper, and he came up to me and says, "Oh, I'm a big fan of Repulsive Vision." I said, "What are you talking about?" Um, they're just he's just the most humble, nicest person you'll
I
ever meet.
Yeah,
And
he's wonderful. He's such just a great human being.
he just honestly won me over. I mean, one of my best mates is a Hellripper mega fan. He literally goes to every single Hellripper show in the UK. So he's been begging me, like, "You've got to get Hellrippers. They're busy. I can't do it." I mean, Green Lung was another one on our list for this year.
Another band that are just doing that, aren't they? You
Yeah,
know, it's incredible how I saw Green Lung for the first time only earlier this year. Liked them for quite a long time, never got a chance to see them, but seeing them live, I was like, wow, they are the real deal. Green Lung,
yeah.
they're a future festival headliner, Bloodstock, and potentially even bigger than that. There's something special about that band.
I agree. I agree. When we first started booking this, I mean, Avenger is an easy one because I play in Avenger, and the drummer is part of Repulsive Vision as well. So
Right.
relatively local. Um, they're at the headline level. They've got the kind of legacy and background of the song. So that was an easy headliner. But we wanted to have a co-headliner. So one was new wave British heavy metal, very traditional, and one was hardcore. Or didn't have to be hardcore, but something that was more modern, just
Yeah.
old school modern. So it has that kind of diversity. But from the off, we said Saturday night's headliner, it's got to be something out of what anyone could have considered. That's probably the way we'll work. It's almost like a night of salvation at
Yeah. Yeah.
Damnation.
Yeah.
We want to kind of introduce everything on the first day, and I think that both days are just as strong as each other in equal ways. Um, and I think that the amalgamation of, in my opinion, we've got four headliners on the Friday. We've got Kev Riddle's Baphomet playing all the Angel Witch classics. Obviously, Avenger, Kill to This, and Human Nature. Because in Human Nature, are going to be the next Hell Ripper.
Mate, they're good. Yeah, next album, they're going places. I've actually recently tried to book them to play a show here in Chelmsford, and I'm trying to quick catch them, play them here before they become too big. I genuinely think next year's a big year for them.
I completely agree. I mean, after Damnation, they really. I think what's great is that they appeal to the hardcore crowd
Yeah,
as
they
well
do.
as
Yeah,
like Grove Street and all these other bands that
yeah.
they tore the line of hardcore and thrash. So the metal fans are cool with it. The hardcore fans are cool with it, and then it just works. And I think that that's the future of the thrash genre.
Hardcore with axes and swords, and
Yeah,
yeah, it does work for me.
either
Um,
that or goats.
yeah, bit of that. But yeah, yeah, like I said, I fully expect them to explode next year. Um, let's talk about some of the challenges then of putting on these events, all day events, and you get to the day and you think, fuck me, it's here, we're starting. Have you experienced any kind of near disasters on some of these days? Do you anticipate, bands running late and equipment not turning up, backlines not working, all that kind of thing? What kind of pitfalls do you come across?
Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. It's a pure spinal tap profession, and there's you can put every bit of time and planning and everything, and things will always happen that's wrong. So I mean, people would kind of laugh at me because I never settle on the event. I spend the most money on it, and I don't get to enjoy a fucking second of it. So like we've already had two massive pitfalls that we've managed to sort out. Obviously, Cage Fight, one of our headliners dropping out. You know, if it was any other band, you could be like, all right, well, we'll just swap things around, maybe throw someone else. Yeah, headliner, that's the hard one. And
Yeah.
we were lucky to find Killer This. We have a Motorhead tribute, a local Motorhead tribute playing the Saturday, whose guitarist just left. So instead of struggling to try and find a replacement for the same budget, I've just said I'll learn the set. So I'm gonna play it. Sometimes you just have to kind of take the L and hope and pray that it all works out on the night. You know, we've had a lot of spanners in the works in the private kind of thing. I won't discuss it, but it's been a bit surreal behind the scenes. Obviously, last year we had a separation. We're traveling up from Bristol, and there was an accident on the M6.
Yeah, that's
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
they'd been traveling for what 9 hours. They finally got there like 10 minutes after their set was supposed to run. We asked Devastator if they could swap, and of course they haven't got any of their corpse paint on or this kind of stuff. And they were like, it's going to take us like 20 minutes to get ready to go on. And then Separation roll up, instruments out, straight on stage, played probably one of the best sets of the entire weekend. But, you know, those kind of things you just have to prepare for.
yeah.
You have the bands that come up to you at the end of the night and said, are we due some money? And you say, no. Oh, I'm sure we're getting paid. So I show them the email trail said there's literally no mention of money.
Yeah.
Oh, we just assumed. No, if nothing's agreed, then I think we had one punch up last year.
Oh no, really?
Not me personally, but so someone was in the pit and he accidentally fell into his girlfriend, and the boyfriend, you know, started kind of, you know, battering him, and these things happen. We've had
Yeah.
worse happen in the past. I mean, we've had full gig cancellations before, so we can't really complain about a few little bits and pieces like this. But we've uh, we've got a lot of support. We've got a good team. We've got a lot of people who love the festival and love what's going on. I think we had a bit of a spanner in the works this week where the council got wind of the event and decided that we had issues with the fire department, and so he's had to go up and sort out the capacity, and they've decided the capacity is about 70 less than we expected. So it's just one of those things that we're gonna it does mean that we're gonna sell out. But yeah, decidedly less so. Again, that knocks some of our, should we say, profit margin, even though we're not making any profit. You
No,
know,
but it's still, like, it's still money spent, isn't it? So, you need to, for these things to happen, whether we like it or not, it's all this kind of white picket fence thinking that, oh yeah, we'll put these shows on and it doesn't really matter if it loses money. But at some point, you have to say we can't keep spending money on this. Something's got to give, and that's where that's that tricky balance, isn't it?
people think that it all just goes on the bands. I mean, in the
Yeah.
past, we've had openers that, like local openers that have basically just rolled out and like rolled out of bed straight to go and play, and they'd be like, "Sorry, yeah, our fee's about 125 quid." And I said, "Can you see there's a band who come from London who are asking for 60? You know, it's like it's not happening, mate. You know, but you don't learn until you have that experience and stuff. But
I guess you've got to be prepared to have the awkward conversations as well, haven't you? It's never nice talking about money in any situation. So I suppose it's just you want everybody to be happy, but you've got to be honest, haven't you?
absolutely, I mean, I'm playing 3 times for free. You know,
I was just sitting there thinking that,
I
yeah, you are playing 3 times over the weekend, aren't you?
played 3 times for free. And usually they back down when I say that. I said, look, I know that you want to get paid. And I understand every band deserves to get paid. But sometimes you have to look at I hate to say exposure. Sometimes you have to say, this is a gig that will be better for me in the long run than
Yeah,
it's kind of like going and doing Bloodstock and not getting paid like your
yeah.
full wage or something like that. I understand that the whole vibe of not getting paid enough, and I know I wish I was earning money from every gig you do, but sometimes you have to take the loss for a gig that's worth something. If it's like just you and the promoter's charging £10 a ticket and somehow you don't get any cash out of that, I get that completely. When you've got bands from Singapore, they take
Yeah.
the most of it. But again, it's things that people don't think about. The Portaloos, you
Yep.
know,
Yep.
it's riders. We provide a rider for every band. Just like a simple few couple of cans each, that kind of stuff, just in the back area. It's stupid things that no one thinks about, like wristbands or lighting. We've had to get a generator just in case the electrics don't
Yep.
uh, can't cope with the PA. It's all these little bits and pieces that add to make a festival. Again, events insurance. All these little bits and pieces that the punter doesn't usually think about, but we're having to. And then it's hotels, and it's a lot more
Yeah.
complicated than people think.
This is it. This is it. I mean, recently I've been we talked about Damnation, that I've been listening to the Two Promoters One podcast. So the guy from Arc Tangent and 2000 Trees and the guy from Damnation, and they've really been opening up on what it is really like putting on these events, and it's a real eye opener. You think, fuck me, there are bands out there demanding to have 150 fucking towels.
Yeah,
It's just it's mad. It's absolutely mad what the world has become. So, that will spread all the way through, won't it? That kind of thing. You're going to have to meet demand somewhere along the lines.
I love that podcast as well.
Brilliant.
One of my favorites was he had a discussion with this major booking agent,
Yeah,
and
good on that.
one of the things we had, particularly with bigger bands, is you'd say, like I would like to book this band, and they'd say, make me an offer, and then you'd be like, oh, I don't know how much they're worth. Okay, 5,000, and then they say, nope, that's not enough, and like
Yeah.
we thought it was just because we were small time and all this. But hearing Gavin say that he was getting it
Yep.
from booking agents, where he said, "Look, can we not just ignore this whole back and forth and just give me the fee that you want?" And really, what it comes down to is these booking agents want some promoter that doesn't know what they're talking about to say, "Oh, 20,000." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, we'll take 20,000. That's great, bingo." And it comes down to smaller bands as well. There's some of the smaller bands that are starting to grow. We've had the same kind of thing where we thought they were a £300 band, and it turns out they were a £500 band, and
Yeah.
they were that insulted that they decided not to do the festival.
Fucking hell, it's tough, isn't it? And like I said, it is all on eye opener hearing all this in the background. Like I just mentioned, we started putting on a couple of small shows here in Chelmsford because we think there may be a scene here somewhere that we're trying to work on, but the level we're working at is quite simple. But at some point, we want to make a bit of a step up, and I just know that it's just going to get tougher and tougher and tougher. So, I've got full respect for any of you guys out there that are doing this. It's an incredible feat. And I can imagine you do say to yourself a lot, why the fuck am I doing this?
On a daily basis. Not only that, but I also have a partner that gets to tell me that as well. Uh, so I have it in stereo. It's great. Um, but I mean, this is the struggles are the part that I think will make the decision for me whether I want to continue or not,
Yeah.
because there's only so much you can push your prices
Yeah.
without providing something that's bigger than you already are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And taking the bigger risks, taking these, and we have a list of bands we'd love to book, but prices are like doubling every year.
Yeah.
Not just like a couple of hundred negligible kind of amounts. We're talking doubling. And I mean, we got offered, I'm not going to say the name, a significant American death metal band for 20,000.
Oh my God.
And that's 20,000 plus hotels, flights, all the usual. And you sit there and think, well, next year that's going to be 25,000.
Yeah. It's just,
I appreciate that. I understand why they're doing it. It's obviously because they're no longer making money out of merch. Well, not merch, but kind of CDs, physical media.
That's it.
Uh,
This is how the only way they're really making a living now, isn't it? Merch sales and playing live. So I get
Absolutely,
it. You know.
absolutely. And if they're not going to make enough money to make it worthwhile, what was the point?
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
And we want them to keep playing. We want to keep seeing them. So it's I don't know, like Pantera. These Pantera shows that have just been announced. I
Yeah,
know that's going to be probably 80, 85, 90 quid a ticket.
yeah.
I expect, and it's getting to a point now, like AC/DC, like Pearl Jam, you know, well over 100 quid a ticket, pushing 200 quid a ticket. It's starting to price people out.
That's the big issue because cost of living, no one's really earning more than inflation's letting them. There's going to be a line, and this is part of the reason why we probably for our weekend we probably should be charging 65, 70, 80, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah,
But we know that doing something as high as that, it'll start turning people away from, say, getting a hotel. Like if the hotel's, let's say, 60 quid and your ticket's 45, that seems more doable.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
especially with the travel up to Barrow. If we were in Manchester, I would be charging 80 plus for it because people would be there.
Yeah, you got the footfall, haven't you? It's completely different, but it's finding that sweet spot, I suppose, isn't it? Enough to try and
Absolutely.
at least make it financially worthwhile, but like you said, not turn people off.
Absolutely.
So
And I think that helps for us is charging a little bit less and making it worthwhile for people to travel because you know I know Barrow-in-Furness isn't exactly a tourist hotspot, and I know it's probably a lot. I mean, the amount of people that have messaged me to say, "Where is Barrow-in-Furness?" There's a few people that have said, "What?" Like on the Wormrot initial announcement of the tour, there were so many people commenting saying, "Weird places to play in the UK. Where the hell is Barrow-in-Furness?"
but
So you know,
that makes it interesting. There's something fucking cool about that,
yeah,
So I don't know a great deal about it because the other little festival up there, Darkness Over Cumbria,
yeah,
and which I believe is pretty much exclusively black metal,
yes.
and they're doing something a little bit different as well. So maybe the area you're in, maybe there is something there for the future. It's possible.
Darkness over Cumbria has two things going for it. Well, three things. One, it's in the lakes.
Yeah.
It's right next to Lake Windermere.
Yeah.
Two, there's free camping
Okay.
for everyone there. But three, it's exclusive. So that I don't know, there's probably about 150, 200 tickets maximum.
Yeah.
And four, it's got a niche.
Proper.
Going up there is really, I don't want to say magical, but it's got a vibe. It's got a certain vibe, and it's beautiful. But Spellford was I've played there several times. The organizer is a very close friend of mine, Paul Gibson.
That's cool.
You know, he's been doing it for years. He's got this cult of personality, should we say, about him that he just seems to exude this black metal kind of aura. Not to mention the guy that runs literally the guy that runs the place. He's become such a character. He's become a sight to be seen at this. It feels unique, and there's people all over Europe that come to this gig. You know,
Yeah, it's mad. It's
it is bad.
but that's what I don't know. Black metal is one of those things that will do that, won't it? Because it's so out there, I suppose. I mean, Fortress Festival, that's another one. I mean, that sold out, and that looked like that was an incredible success. So, more power to them as well. But up in the lakes and where you are, that's another level of challenge. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Well, that being said, Scarborough's a nightmare to get to.
Well, yeah, I mean, I looked at it, we thought about going. We'll probably give it a go next year. And I looked at it and thought, oh, it's only about a 4 hour drive. But then I sort of looked at the route kind of thing, and yeah, it's not the easiest place to get to. But
Uh,
obviously, people, and they've got a cool venue as well. That spa thing that they hold it in is a bit different, and
it's very
so
unique.
yeah,
We One of my bands played it not this year but last year back as it was building. But yeah, like really strange vibe. But again, it has that unique quirkiness.
yeah,
Plus, also Scarborough has a little bit of a quirkiness to it as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
Also Gary from Anti Inferno kind of knows everyone.
That
He
helps.
and he really knows his obscure like black metal and obscure music. You know, in general, he just I think he was the right person for the job. He runs Reaper
Yeah,
agency.
yeah, and they, they seem to have built quite a name for themselves as well. And what I like about all this, and that whole sort of north-south divide, is all of this is happening in the north of England.
Yeah,
We are saturated in the southeast. We moan when it's not every week or it's not on our doorstep or whatever. But all this stuff that's happening in the north, I think all of you guys are doing something really cool, and it's just offering something different. And you know, while you all may be hours and hours away from me, and that I might grumble about that, it's still cool to see something different being done. Even something with Damnation. That's in man between Manchester and Leeds. Have they gone back and forth? It's good to see. It's something a bit different.
again, it's unique as well. He really goes above and beyond to do unique things.
Mm,
Special album sets
yeah,
and I think that that's where, in my opinion, the money is these kind of unique nostalgia sets that download doesn't really need to do anymore because they can just throw any old shit on their lineup and people will buy tickets.
like this year.
Like yeah, like this year.
Yeah,
Even Bloodstock's kind of reached a point where it is so popular that it can take bold choices
yeah,
and people will go regardless. Like Hellfest is another one that could make bold choices, like have Foo Fighters headlining.
yeah,
You know, it has the option and it knows it's going to sell out regardless of who's on there. And I think that can only be a positive thing in the extreme scene. I think Download in general, doing something as bold as their headliners this year, proves that we do have the next guard of headliners now that Metallica and Iron Maiden and all them are getting close to the end of days. It proves that there's options.
yeah.
And
At some point, someone's got to step up. Either that, or the massive 100,000 capacity festivals will just have to come to an end, and it'll just become, more smaller stages in fields and things like that, rather than one massive headliner. I don't know. That's an odd one. That in 10 years' time, the whole landscape, I think, will look very, very different.
I agree. I think it's going to go in the Hellfest direction, where
Yeah,
there's a bespoke stage for every genre,
yeah,
where something gets like let's say like Ghost will probably be a big main stage headliner. I reckon. I
yeah.
think they're almost
Absolutely.
there
Yeah,
already. Bring Me the Horizon will be a big one. So they'll have a metalcore stage, and then they'll have your kind of Ghost with classic rock revival. I mean, the
yeah.
Greta Van Fleets and all this kind of stuff. Death metal is huge at the moment,
It
so you'll
is.
have Blood Incantation and all these bands below. Black metal's huge at the moment. Even a
Yeah,
band like Watain
yeah.
can headline that stage and have a great, and people will go. I think that even though metal isn't as combined, because there was a point where the height of metal was Metallica and Ozzy and AC/DC and
Mm.
Def Leppard and these major bands that everyone liked. I think that we've changed from that. There's no one thing that people like. I think that it's always going to get more diverse. I wonder if it's going to go in a Glastonbury kind of way where we have more stages and more independent and more small options.
I would like that. I would like to see that. I'd love to be able to go to a festival and it's all like, it's in marquees or smaller stages, and you're sort of like 5 to 10,000 people at the most in any one area at a time. And I think you'll see loads more interesting stuff. I mean, even Download lower down on the bill, they have booked some really cool stuff this year. It's the
Yeah,
upper end where it looks a bit wet.
yeah,
But, they booked bands like Celestial Sanctuary, for instance, and so it's 11 o'clock in the morning. But for them, that's a massive opportunity.
yeah. On Harriet and stuff
Harry,
like
yeah,
that.
another one. Yeah, this whole UK scene is so strong at the moment, and you know more and more of these big promoters need to jump on these bands and give them the opportunity to prove themselves.
One of the fantastic bands, probably one of my favorite bands of modern times, is Svalbard.
Yeah, great band, Svalbard.
Who I think that they really should be the next big thing. Really, I
Yeah,
don't see why the BMTH crowd aren't gravitating towards it. It's the next step up, in my opinion.
I guess it's just right place, right time, isn't it? Getting the right opportunities, the right support tours, things like that, and it will probably come like Green Lung, they're making that break now, and it just seems to have happened at the right time. So the more and more British bands that happens to, the better, as far as I'm concerned. It's great
I
to keep the scene going.
I agree, and long may it continue. So I
Yeah,
think that the UK scene in general is very strong. There's a lot of dedicated kind of listeners, and I think there are more and more people listening to metal, whether it being Deftones or Deaf Heaven. There are a lot more people who are listening to metal and extreme metal at that.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I think Sleep Token are going to be one of the big headliners.
Yeah, that whole situation is mad. I mean, they do absolutely nothing for me, and this kind of one that's passed me by. I don't know, maybe I'm getting old, but yeah, their their trajectory is quite incredible. They're definitely they're a future download headline. I wouldn't be surprised if they headline next year.
I agree. I
So,
can't hack it myself. Throwing a few breakdowns into a pop song doesn't necessarily do much for me, but you cannot help but respect the trajectory, as you
yep,
mentioned.
yep,
They've gone from
completely.
nobody to being one of the biggest bands on the planet.
Yeah, yeah. So it just proves that it can happen, and no one quite knows why or how, but it obviously does. So if it can happen to them, there's no reason why it can't happen to others.
I mean, all depends on what was behind the scenes to begin with. I think that
Yeah,
it's hard to be organic nowadays.
yeah,
Like again, you don't know how. I mean, look at Venom Prison, for example. That was
mm,
an organic rise, but at the same time, they had a help from people in the industry who
yeah,
they knew. You know,
yeah.
I'm not going full on anti nepo baby or anything like that, but I think that there are a lot of bands who are making catastrophic rises. Like Tailgunner is another band that
Yeah, yeah, we've had them on this podcast a couple of times, but to be fair to them, they are touring their asses off. They are playing live almost constantly,
yeah, oh yeah,
so yeah, maybe it is the right contacts, whatever it is, but they're, yeah, fair play to them.
there's a lot of these kind of stories like South of Salem and
Yeah,
Red
another
Method
one. Yeah, yeah, I like them. They're very
raised
good.
by owls. There's
Yeah,
some rising names and some just kind of like getting there, like Coffin Mulch.
another great band. That, yeah, yeah, they're and that's pretty extreme stuff. And for bands like that to be gathering a following the way they are, yeah, it's an odd one. It wouldn't have happened 15 years ago.
They definitely wouldn't
You
know,
know.
but
But right, I'm fully aware that I'm sort of, I'm keeping you longer than planned. So let's wrap it up and give you the opportunity to just, give everybody the information they need. Anybody who's sort of on the fence about it, what it's all about. Just, the floor's yours, kind of thing. Really, give it a whoring as much as you want.
great stuff. Well, Funeral Fest is a 2 day extreme metal and punk fest. The full lineup is obviously on Facebook. We have it on Instagram. You can pick up tickets from Funeral Fest 23, not 24, 23 at bigcartel.com. Um, we like to try and keep it diverse. We want something for everyone, but we like to try and make it quite unique. Obviously, we've got Wormrot as our Saturday night headliner. We have Morn. We have bands like Extinction of Mankind, Death Collector, Moon Reaper, Harrowed, Inhuman Nature, uh, Kill to This. Kill to This is first gig in about 6 years, I think. The first one with their new album released. We've got Avenger. We've got Blaspheme. We've got Repulsive Vision, Unburia. We like to kind of diversify with everything we can, and I think that that's going to be great for anyone to discover new music. Tickets for the weekend are 45 quid. Day tickets for the Fridays 23, for the Saturdays 26. We have two camping tickets left. So if you're going to get them ASAP. Of course, next to the venue, the soccer bar, we have camping, as mentioned. We also have a travel lodge. There's the usual shit like Domino's Pizza and McDonald's, and there's an Asda next door. So if you don't want to, brave the rain and the wind, um, or as per last year, the flying gazebo. Uh, yeah, there was a gust of wind and the fucking gazebo went right over the venue. Like no one died, so we're okay. Um,
Sensing a
definitely
theme with
funeral
that now.
fest.
No one died. It was fine.
But yeah, where we are. down to earth. We're a grassroots. We're a non-profit. We're not here to make money. We're not here to exploit people. We're here to make a great event with great people, cheap drinks, and great bands, great music. What more could you want
Exactly. That's what matters,
on
isn't
a
it?
sunny Barrow weekend in summer?
Well, I hope it is because yeah, the time I spent in the lakes, I've never seen extremes of weather like it from 1 minute to another. It was like four seasons in an hour, let alone a day. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like that now. It's absolutely hammering it down.
there you go. Yeah, yeah, never seen rain like it. But I back everything up you just said. It's anybody who sat on the fence, if it's not too far from you or anything like that, and you're just thinking it's a weekend, just get involved. I mean, what's 45 quid? Fuck me, in London, I blow 45 quid in less than 2 rounds of drinks. So, it's absolutely nothing. So, get yourselves along and support these events because if we don't support them as metal fans, they just won't happen. And at the end of the day, we're all in it for the same reason. So that's what
Yeah,
it's all about. Get yourselves
all in
along.
for the love of it. That's the only reason we do it is because we love
Yeah.
the music.
Yeah, we are slaves to the riff at the end of the day, aren't we? So yeah. Matt, thanks for coming on. It was really fun. It was a real insight as well to hear, what it's all about and all the struggles and stresses involved in it. So hopefully it makes people understand how hard you guys are working to put these shows on, which I think generally they do, but it was really cool to hear. So, thank you for that. Very much appreciated.
Thank you so much for having us. It's really greatly appreciated, and I think that a lot of people don't consider what you do to be as important as it really is. It's such an important thing for people like yourself to be reviewing and pushing and helping events like this, especially grassroots level. It's hard to get into the major names, the Karangs, the Metal Hammers, and stuff, but
Yeah.
I think that it's so. I think it's so important for webzines and podcasts. It's integral. And to be honest, I think it's part of the DIY culture of punk and metal from the
Yeah.
80s and
Completely.
90s. I think it's
Completely.
so important. And, you know, I think it's fantastic. And I really do appreciate you taking your time, especially out on your Saturday afternoon when you should be at home
No, I, I'm
chilling
I'm
out.
I'm quite happy. Don't worry about that. It's all good. But look, really good luck with the festival. I hope it goes great. I hope everything goes smooth. All the bands just absolutely fucking smash it. And you come out on the other side and you go, no, what? Fuck it. Let's do it again and again and again and again.
That's the
So
peer pressure, man. That's the peer pressure.
yeah, I'm happy to be involved with that. It's fine. It's fine. So yeah. So that's it. Thanks everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll be back in a few days as ever. I'm not sure what with because we never know. Anybody think we know what we're doing on this podcast, but we don't. So until that point, thanks for listening and stay metal.
Cheers, man.